So, John, we've seen, I guess, 8 months prior to an election, we've seen two resignations now from the Prime Minister's office. Most recently, of course, is the one by Gerald Butz, the Principal Secretary to Justin Trudeau. What do these resignations mean?
Well, they mean that what should have been just a passing storm for the Liberals means it could be an election issue. I mean, there are a lot of people out there who are not paying a lot of attention to politics right now, but just the sheer persistence of this story means that even if you're disinterested, you can see on the nightly news the demeanor with which the Prime Minister is carrying himself. He looks like the driver of the getaway car. It looks like he's trying to hide something. It's a story that just will not go away. And every day there seems to be another development. And that is the real problem for the Liberals. They cannot seem to put this thing to bed.
What do the resignations mean in the context of this SNC scandal, if you will?
Well, it's not
Is
quite
it like
clear.
where there's smoke, there's fire?
Well, it's not quite clear to me why Jerry Butz left. There is nothing. There's no smoking gun here. There's nothing that made his job untenable, no specific allegations, and no evidence that he did anything wrong. On the contrary, he says he did nothing wrong and that nobody in his office pressured the Attorney General to make a decision in SSE-Lavalin's favour. I've known Jerry Butz 16 years. He spins journalists a lot, but he tends not to lie to them. In fact, he's never lied to me as far as I know. So I take him at his word that he did nothing wrong. And I think by leaving the Prime Minister's office, his hope is that when more allegations come out, which I think they will do, I mean, it seems inevitable that Jody Wilson-Raybould, having resigned and retained counsel to tell her what she can say, that at some point she intends to come out and speak publicly. I think when that happens, she is probably going to point the finger at Gerald Butz, and now he's out of government, he'll be able to defend himself. I think that's his thinking.
How important of a role did Gerald Butz play? I mean, we've, heard all the comparisons that he was the Prime Minister's right-hand man, if you will. How important was his role?
Well, his opponents will say he was a Rasputin-type figure or a Cyrano de Bergerac who was pulling the strings on the Prime Minister. I think that overplays his role, but it's hard to overstate how important he was to this government. I mean, he and Justin Trudeau resuscitated a party that was all but dead back in the 2013, 2014. He is the guy who came up with a lot of the narratives, a lot of the policies that the government has ended up campaigning on and winning on. I mean, this whole idea of the middle class and those working hard to join it, that's Jerry Butz. This grand bargain of pipelines and carbon tax, that's Jerry Butz. He was integral to the Trans Mountain Pipeline deal. He was integral to the negotiations over NAFTA. I think there's going to be a lot of, there's a big void, a Jerry Butz-shaped void in the Prime Minister's office right now. And it's hard to see how they fill it, because not only was he chief political confidant, chief electoral strategist, and senior advisor, he was Justin Trudeau's best friend. I mean, they have been inseparable since university back in McGill in the late 80s.
Does his resignation change anything with respect to being called as a witness with the Justice Committee? Because we had heard recently that he wasn't going to be called to testify. Does this resignation change anything?
I don't think it changes him being called as a witness. If he's called as a witness, he'll have to appear. He may have problems of cabinet confidence. I mean, this is how integral he was. He sat in caucus, which was quite unusual for senior PMO staff, although not unprecedented. And I gather he sat in caucus, so he's party to cabinet confidences, which he would not be able to share in as a witness. But his resignation, I don't think, influences that.
Are we better off with a public inquiry? I mean, the opposition has alluded to that. The NDP government has also alluded to calling on a public inquiry.
I think public inquiries tend not to be the way to go. They tend to be long, drawn out, and expensive. And essentially, to me, this case comes down to one or at least a number of conversations between Jody Wilson-Raybould and somebody in the Prime Minister's office. Now, we know that she spoke to Justin Trudeau because he told us that. We know that she spoke to Jerry Butz. He told us that as well. So what happened in those conversations, we have not yet heard. And I think that's the key to it. I don't think you need a public inquiry to find that out. Although, having said that, the Justice Committee may not be the venue given the partisan nature of that forum.
Earlier in the conversation, you had mentioned that Jody Wilson-Raybould, and as we now all know, has retained a lawyer, not just any lawyer, a former Supreme Court judge. What happens now with Gerald Butz? Does he now lawyer up as well?
I think it remains to be seen what the allegations are. I mean, he may want to if there's an allegation that he obstructed justice. And that's the most serious charge here. If they pressured Jody Wilson-Raybould to the point that she thought justice was being obstructed, and she makes that allegation, then if I were him, I would get a lawyer. But at the moment, we're talking about pressure. Now, the rules of the Attorney General rules are governed by something called the Shawcross Doctrine. And that means that the Attorney General can talk to her cabinet colleagues and be informed by them, but not told what to do. Now, it would seem to be that they did talk to her. They may have informed her of their preference, which seems to be to have negotiated a remediation deal with SNC-Lavalin. But it seems clear to me that they did not tell her what to do because she didn't do it. That deal was not forthcoming. And therefore, and she didn't resign at the time of being pressured. She even accepted another position in cabinet, which suggests she wasn't so aggrieved that she felt that the law had been broken. So whether this is a full-blown scandal and laws have been broken, it seems to me right now that is unlikely.